Tommy Edman was the surprise star of the NLCS for the Dodgers, much like Steve Pearce for the Red Sox in 2018, Marco Scutaro for the Giants in 2012. Somebody you didn't necessarily expect. Will there be somebody like that in the World Series this year? We'll get into it. We'll also talk about what the Dodgers need to do to win this series, and should Fernando Valenzuela be in the Hall of Fame? Let's get live on Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And thanks to those of you who are with us live here on Wednesday evening. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. If this is your first time with us, my name is Jeff Steiner. My normal co-host is Vince Samperio. That's not him. That's my buddy Clint Pasillas joining me today. Vince, Clint, and I are all lifelong Dodger fans, just like most of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. That means if you use the code LOCKEDONMLB on Game Time, you can get into Game 1 of the World Series for whatever a zillion dollars minus 20 is.
A lot of money.
But hey, it's 20 bucks is 20 bucks. Either way, here we are to talk Dodgers. My buddy Clint is here. Vince was unavailable tonight, and I always appreciate Clint being willing to hop in and talk Dodgers with me, because it is always more fun to talk to somebody else than to talk to yourself. So Clint, welcome, and thanks for being with me.
Absolutely, Jeff. I always appreciate talking Dodger baseball with you. And hey, we get to talk about a World Series, getting set up for a World Series. That's fun. We haven't done that a whole lot together. So I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, you and I have probably never talked about a Dodgers World Series together. Like, we've known each other online during the time the Dodgers have been going to the World Series, but I think the first time we ever collaborated on anything was there in the offices at that place you used to work. And that was, I know it was right after the Dodgers had traded for Trace Thompson from the Tigers, because I remember that was a topic of conversation. Doug asked me what we should expect from Trace Thompson, and I said a warm body until Mookie's ribs heal. Yeah, and he ended up being more than that, a little bit. So,
at least for that. Yeah.
What was that? That was probably 2021.
That was 22, I believe, or 21. Whatever it was interesting, different times in our Dodger fandom for the organization. And now good times, prosperous times, Shohei times. And again, we are 36-ish. I'm bad at math. You know this.
I do know that. That's why I let you keep going with that sentence. I'm like, I want to see how close Clint can get with this.
Less than 48 hours away from Game 1, from the first pitch, the tip off, or whatever you want to say. Listen, man, it's late, but let's talk some Dodger baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. We are 44 hours and 4 minutes away from the first pitch of Game 1 of the World Series.
I knew that.
Clint knew that for sure. So the NLCS was interesting. The Dodgers played really well. They set records for runs scored. They pitched pretty well. I think the offense, though, was the story of that series. And we kind of, the pitching being the story of the end of the NLDS and the beginning of the NLCS was kind of a surprise to everybody, because pitching was supposed to be the weak spot for the Dodgers here. And we definitely have seen some of that. The 2 games the Dodgers lost in the NLCS, it was because of bad pitching. Not bad pitching by everybody, but Landon Knack and Jack Flaherty, they earned those losses they got. I guess Ryan Brazier technically got the loss in Game 2, probably. Yeah. But Landon Knack, he earned that loss.
Honorary L, for sure.
But the offense came through, and a lot of that was because of Tommy Edman. And obviously, I mentioned this to Vince the other day. It's kind of crazy that both Max Muncy and Shohei Ohtani got on base more times than any Dodger ever had in a postseason series before, and yet everybody agreed Tommy Edman is the MVP of this series because of what he did. And I've been thinking about, and I've made the point many times that it's always, not always, but a lot of the time, it's not who you expect. And you need those contributions. And Steve Pearce is my go-to all the time from 2018. that dude, Steve Pearce, was the World Series MVP. And like, if you even heard of Steve Pearce, you definitely don't know how to spell his name. It's crazy. And then, like I mentioned in the intro, Marco Scutaro in 2012, very similar to Tommy Edman, traded to the Giants at the trade deadline, had a crazy, awesome postseason, and ended up being a big star for them, helping them win a World Series. So my question that I want to talk about, Clint, is Tommy Edman the guy again in the World Series? Do we have somebody else step up, a surprise star, an Andy Pages or a Chris Taylor or somebody? Or
stop it, Chris Taylor.
I guess, see how far I can stretch this.
Okay, I got you.
Or is it going to be Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts who step up?
I mean, you'd hope it'd be the leaders, the big money, the big dollar guys, but you mentioned some of those names, and it feels like it's not just the Marco Scutaro. You can do like an Adolis Garcia. I don't know how. I wouldn't call him like an unsung hero or anything of last year's Rangers team, but still not necessarily the guy you had, pinned or pegged to be the guy that helps you, so immensely in that World Series. I think Corey still ended up getting the World Series MVP. I forget. It was a very boring World Series. A few people remember it. You mentioned the 12 Giants. I think the 10 Giants had Cody Ross, who kind of went off for them. It's not always your Buster Posies or your Shohei Otanis. You got to rely on these guys. And does Edman have another one in his back pocket? I sure hope so. I don't know, because I was thinking about this. I know you told me this earlier to break the illusion of this.
This isn't a totally impromptu conversation.
I mean, it's quasi impromptu because I was thinking on it for a second, and I was like, I don't know if Will Smith qualifies as that, but like entering this postseason kind of in a little bit of a spiral for the final 3 months. Maybe if anything, he was sort of getting back on track in the regular season, but mostly been MIA here in the postseason. I have that guy. I had him as my like X factor, somebody who could enter the postseason with not the highest of expectations, only because he's not Mookie Betts. He's not Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, Teoscar Hernandez. He's Will Smith, and he was the cleanup hitter for this team when, first pitch happened back in Korea and so forth. He's kind of my guy. I think, if somebody's going to kind of sneak up unexpectedly, and he would be very much one of those unexpected guys at this point entering a World Series. If it's not a Tommy Edman type, if it's not maybe a Gavin Lux, sneaking up and sneaking into this postseason, Will's kind of got to be my guy that, been there, done that for sure in a postseason. But if he's able to put a little bit of the team on his back, whether it be in that 7 or 8 hole down in the lineup, you're going to feel real good in about 8 to 10 days or fewer as a Dodger fan.
Stop trying to do math, man.
Only for you, man. Only for you.
I would love to see Will Smith break out. It's kind of crazy to think about the fact that right now Will Smith would be more of a surprise star than Kike Hernandez.
Yeah.
Because the bottom line is Will Smith is a better hitter than Kike Hernandez overall, but not lately and not in the postseason. And, everydayers know I'm not a big believer in postseason superpowers. I do think, I think the superpower is being able to be the same player. I used to talk about how Jock Peterson's numbers in October were exactly the same as they were in the regular season, but there's value in that. The pitching is generally better and the pressure is higher. And so if you can be the same player, it feels like you are playing better because relative to everybody else, you probably are. Even if you're relative to yourself, you're not. No, and so Kike Hernandez has that. And we've seen that from Will Smith in the past. Will Smith, in 2020 NLDS, when he had that 5-hit game against the Padres, obviously the 2020 NLCS, he had the huge home run off of other Will Smith in game 5. And, so both of those guys have the ability to do it in October. They aren't, overwhelmed by the pressure.
Yeah.
And even Mookie Betts, who I got yelled at so many times for saying, Mookie can hit in October. We've seen him do it. The fact that he hasn't in the last 2 years, which is, by the way, 7 games. Like, we're not talking about he struggled for 40 games. 7 games over 2 years doesn't tell us anything. And we've seen that play out this year. He has hit really well for the Dodgers this postseason, had some huge hits for them. Will Smith, I think, is a great choice, and he was one who I was thinking about too. Like I wouldn't go so far as to say he is the key to victory for the Dodgers, which we are going to talk more in the next segment about keys to victory. But if Will Smith qualifies as a surprise star, and I think, like you said, based on the last 3 months of the regular season and the first 2 series of the postseason, I think he does. I'm with you on that. And maybe it's boring to agree, but I agree, man.
Listen, again, we'll take anybody. I like Dad Braves in the chat saying Max Muncy for MVP, whatever it takes, as long as it's the Dodger hoisting that MVP trophy after 4 wins. That's what we're looking for. That is all we're looking for. And there's a lot of really good players, a lot of really good options on this team, whether it be an Edman, a Kike, or even, as Jeff Snyder jokingly said a minute ago, maybe a Chris Taylor in there.
And I like Showtime LA's comment. Jeff is always right. You know what? Showtime LA seems to be right, at least right this time. So we're going to come back in a minute.
By proxy, I think I'm also right because I think we're both agreeing on Will Smith.
We agreed. Yeah. I mean, when you agree with me, you're absolutely right.
Hell yeah.
We'll come back in a minute. We're going to talk about some of these keys to victory for the Dodgers, what they need to do to win this series. It's simple, it's basic, but it's how you win a series. We'll dig into that. So please keep it locked on Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's right, place your bet. Don't have to win it. It doesn't have to be a good bet. You don't have to be any good at this. All you got to do is place a $5 bet, and you will get $200 in bonus bets. And once again, I was looking at some of the World Series odds on FanDuel, and there is some pretty interesting stuff. I was looking at who will hit the most home runs in the 2024 World Series, and there are some interesting names there. Shohei Ohtani is the most likely, but even he's a plus 300. If you sure Ohtani's going to break out that little baby porch in right field at Yankee Stadium? Think Ohtani's going to break out, have the most home runs in the World Series? Plus 300. Boom. Easy way to make money. Another interesting one was the most hits in the World Series. Guess who has the second best odds? Tommy Edman. You have Ohtani at plus 500, Tommy Edman at plus 550. Then he goes to Aaron Judge, Mookie Betts, Teoscar Hernandez, Juan Soto. Guys you might have heard of. FanDuel has bought into the Tommy Edman hype. Maybe you should too. A lot of fun things you can do there. You can place your $5 bet on one of those things, or place a $5 bet on something, and then with your $200 in bonus bets, take the big risk on one of those with a chance to make some big money. Whatever you do, do it over at FanDuel.com. Hey, we are back. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks for being an everydayer if you are. If you're not, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning or the night before every weekday morning if you want to watch us live on YouTube like we are pretty much every Sunday through Thursday night. And in the postseason, some extra days too, because you got to do episodes when the Dodgers win a postseason game, even if it is on an off day for you normally. So check that out. Also, make your second listen Locked On MLB, hosted by our buddy Paul Francis Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully. Good show over there. You can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the two 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. Locked On Sports LA is where you can find the Locked On Dodgers postcast, hosted by Pete Fox after pretty much every Dodger game. And remember, you can catch every pitch of every Dodger game on SiriusXM or the SXM app just by searching for Dodgers. So, Clint, I keep almost calling you Vince because that's what I say on this podcast, but I catch myself and I call you Clint because that's your name.
That is says it right about here. There it is.
There it is. Good pointing. You're better at pointing than at mathing.
Gotta be good at something.
Yeah, we all have something. The Dodgers are in the World Series, like we said, for the first time in 4 years. They won the 2020 World Series in 6 games. They lost the 2018 World Series in 5 games. They lost the 2017 World Series in 7 games. May have been some extenuating circumstances in that one. You know what? We don't need to dig into that too much. But my goal, your goal, our goal as Dodger fans is
trash can for listeners, by the way.
Banging on the trash can. Our goal is for the Dodgers to win the 2024 World Series. I think we can agree on that. I think the Dodgers are the better team. Not by a ton. I think the Yankees are a very good team. I think the Dodgers are a better team, even with their injury situation and everything. I think they're a better baseball team. And I think my main lament as a Dodger fan is that doesn't always matter in the postseason.
Yeah.
But sometimes it does. And so what do the Dodgers need to do in this series to make the fact that they are the better team matter in the results?
Well, one key is making sure you put up more points than the other team. I think that's done a lot of good for teams in the past. But in reality, it's making sure the other guy doesn't score as much early in the game. We know the weakness of this team, and we knew it coming into the postseason. We've known it since, early, maybe mid-September. Starting pitching, not an ideal situation. The Dodgers have 3 starters. The Yankees can pull to 4 starters if they need to, if they decide to get a few innings out of Luis Gil. But Dodgers starting pitching, or at least guys that have opened games, 6.08 ERA in 11 games this postseason. Thankfully, the bullpen has been mostly pretty electric, except for some, stinkers and bad spots in there. Shout out Landon Knack. But that's going to be, for me, your number one key. Just keep the game close, keep the game reasonable for the first 4 innings. If you can get to 5, hell yeah. If you can get to 6, you are in a phenomenal spot. Keep the game close, and whether the Dodgers are on top or, chasing by 1 or 2 into the 6th or 7th inning, we've seen this team have that fight. We've seen them put up runs all throughout a game, and that's been arguably for me the most impressive thing about this offense and this version of the team this year. It's not just a bunch of runs in the 3rd and then hopefully that holds up. It's always they're relentless. They keep attacking. So it comes down to that starting pitcher. They got to keep the game close so the bullpen can do its job and the offense can hopefully put enough points on the board to win it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it kind of goes to this really good comment that I see in here. Our Genius Rashad responding to our first segment, that most of these guys have a realistic chance to shine in this series is a good problem to have. That's when you think about our conversation in the first segment, guys who are likely to be in the starting lineup, there's not a single guy who would really surprise you to win the MVP of the World Series. No, none of them are going to be more surprising than Tommy Edman was in the NLCS. And Edman wasn't that surprising. If you've watched Tommy Edman play, it's not like he came out and hit 9 home runs. It was just Tommy Edman being Tommy Edman, the best version of Tommy Edman. But everybody in this lineup, like you mentioned Gavin Lux. Gavin Lux could absolutely be the World Series MVP, could have a great series. The Yankees have the one lefty starter, so he'll probably sit against Carlos Rodon.
Yeah,
Gavin Lux can have a great series against anybody else, and he's probably the least likely of the starters. Obviously Chris Taylor and Kevin Kiermaier are bench players, and either one of those guys would shock you if they were the World Series MVP.
Don't put your money on Austin Barnes. Hasn't sniffed postseason play, I think. He got into one game as a defensive replacement, I think, right?
After Will Smith got hit in the head by a baseball bat.
Yeah, I wouldn't put my money on Austin Barnes.
Yeah, but the guys who are likely to start, none of them would shock you. And so really it is going to come down to the Dodgers basically just playing their game of pass the baton. We saw when Shohei Ohtani stopped putting pressure on himself to do everything, he became a great addition to this Dodger team. And he was very good even when he was putting pressure on himself. Yeah. And then the funny thing is then he took another step forward when Mookie got hurt. So there was more pressure on him. Mookie got hurt and Freddie's son got sick and suddenly there's more pressure. Shohei said, oh, now I'm ready for the pressure. I'm going to be the best player in the universe. But if Shohei goes up there knowing I've got Mookie and Freddie and Teoscar and Muncy and all these guys behind me and is happy taking a walk, which he did several times in the NLCS, poking a single, occasionally hitting a home run. If you get a pitch to hit, yeah, I don't mind the home run, Shohei, but he doesn't need the homer. And each of these guys, if they can just play their game, I do think, I've mentioned this, both Garrett Cole and Carlos Rodon, they both count on getting chase from hitters. They both live outside the strike zone quite a bit. And we saw that in the last series with Jose Quintana. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Jose Quintana doesn't have the stuff of a Garrett Cole or a Carlos Rodon, but the same approach of I'm going to fool you into swinging at pitches that aren't good pitches. The Dodgers don't do that a lot. And if they can continue to not do that, and obviously it's harder to not do that against guys with better stuff. Jose Quintana never had a chance against the Dodgers.
No.
His stuff is not good enough to get out a team that doesn't chase. Garrett Cole and Carlos Rodon both have good stuff, but if the Dodgers can force them into the strike zone, they're either going to take some walks, put pressure on them that way, or get pitches to hit. And I feel like that's a huge key on the offensive side. You kind of mentioned the pitching side of keeping it close. On the offensive side, imagine if this team can knock Garrett Cole out of the game in the third inning like they did to Sean Manaea the other day.
Yeah.
Changes the whole complexion of the series.
Absolutely.
And,
I mean, getting that early look at a bullpen, at this Yankees bullpen, which you don't have a lot of exposure to this bullpen, that plays up in game 2, in game 3, in game 5, and all of it. So that said, Garrett Cole is very good. Has been mostly a very good postseason pitcher. Maybe Yankees fans aren't as high on him this year. I see DM24 mentioning as well the velocity is down. I think he still does have 99 in that back pocket here and there, but if he's spraying a little bit, or the Dodgers are able to earn their walks or just kind of poke the ball forward, yeah, you can very easily knock him out with again the relentless approach that this team has so far this October.
Yeah, absolutely. Ruthless aggression is what they used to call it in wrestling, right?
Like it.
Yeah. So that's the keys. We just told you. I hope the Dodgers are watching. I assume they are. In summary, score more runs than the other team, pitch good, hit good. Right?
Easy. And defend. Please defend.
Might as well. Yeah. As long as you're pitching and hitting, you might as well play defense too, Yeah.
It's an easy game. Why are we out there playing?
Run the bases goodly too.
That one I cannot do.
Yeah. That's going to complete our World Series talk, because we're going to come back and we're going to talk about Fernando Valenzuela. Clint and I were texting earlier today about Fernando. Obviously still raw for all of us, but I want to talk about, should Fernando Valenzuela be in the Hall of Fame? So that's what we're going to talk about when we come back in a second. So please keep it locked on Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. I have a script for a Game Time ad read, which I am pulling up right now because this episode is brought to you by Game Time. As you know, I love sports. I love concerts. I love comedy shows. The thing they all have in common is buying tickets. And that means the other thing they have in common is you can find the best price on Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. If you are looking to go to, say, a World Series game at Dodger Stadium this weekend, you know what? It's going to cost a lot, but Game Time is guaranteed to have the best price, because if you find a better price in the same section or row on a different site, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. At these prices, that could be a big deal. And guess what? I've put that guarantee to the test many times. I've never been able to use it because Game Time has always had the best prices, just like they promised they will. You have the option of turning on all-in pricing, which will show you the total prices up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to your favorite events with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. We are back. Thanks again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks again to my buddy Clint Pasillas for being here with me, guest hosting with me. I made a point to tell Clint before we started, he is a co-host, not a guest star. Clint, I got to tell you, this is going to sound mushy. You're one of my best Dodger friends. Like, I love talking baseball with you. I love talking Dodgers with you. I think you and I have become very good friends over the years, and I appreciate it. And it is very fun talking Dodgers with you. You are, last night, I think I told you, Vince and I were live when we got the news that Fernando Valenzuela had passed away. I had just done the intro to the episode. I was about to kick off our first topic, and Vince interrupted me with breaking news. And so we adjusted on the fly. I told somebody today, I'm kind of glad it happened when we were live, because I don't think I could have done justice to Fernando if I'd had time to prepare. So at least not having time to prepare, I had a good excuse for not doing justice. I think we did okay. But Vince has the cultural connection to Fernando that I don't have. You have that more than I do too. I wanted to just kind of give you a minute to talk about Fernando, and then we'll dig into whether he should be in the Hall of Fame, but what Fernando meant to you and your family.
Now, I appreciate that. I mean, I'm somebody who, despite this wealth of baseball and Dodger knowledge, I understand that I got into baseball a little bit later. It was after the Fernando time, especially, as a Dodger, and still you knew immediately, like you start picking up on all the cues, following the game, following the Dodgers, learning about the lore, the rich history of this beautiful organization. And there's one of those names amongst the Koufaxes and the Robinson. There's one of those names that will always come up as well. And especially in my turf, in my neck of the woods, it's Fernando. Fernando is, you could argue, it's not even an argument. He is the bridge. He is the doorway that led to the 3 million fans going to Dodger games every year, the bountiful amount of exuberance you get, people wearing Dodgers hats all around town, everywhere you go, especially out here. There's a connection because of Fernando, because whether it's somebody's grandparent or somebody's uncle or their Theo or their dad or whatever it is who watched Dodger baseball growing up, and now that just becomes Dodger baseball, Fernando, that legacy, that lineage, he's right there next to the rosary with you as well in some of the houses out here, again, in my neck of the woods in beautiful La Puente, California. Without Fernando, you don't get that. I don't think the Dodgers would have, I don't think the Dodgers would not have this strong bond to the community. Murals going up depicting either Fernando or such great members or pieces of the greater Dodger organization, Joe Kelly and all this kind of stuff, Fernando, Vince Scully, all of it comes down to people wanting to watch Fernando, people spreading that good word of what number 34 did. And thank God he was able to be there, still be around, still be healthy enough to watch his number go up, rightfully so. Dodgers did a great thing when they got rid of their stupid Hall of Fame rule to retire his number, and he got to enjoy that for the better part of 2 seasons, or at least a full season. But yeah, it's an immense loss for the Dodgers, for the community, and you can't say enough great things. I grew up listening to Vinny. I know a lot of fans have been able to hear a lot more Fernando in these days. I've met Fernando in the past. Wonderful dude. He just wanted to keep to himself. And up until the very end, he kept everything to himself. But huge loss. And hopefully, we got win for 34 now here in the World Series.
Yeah, absolutely. Game 6 would be on his 64th birthday. So Dodgers in 6, they could win it for Fernando. I'd prefer Dodgers in 4 and have the parade on his birthday. Less stressful that way. If I know every Hall of Fame is just called the Hall of Fame. If you look at the actual words, Hall of Fame, there is no case. If you're talking about fame, there is no case for Fernando Valenzuela not being in the Hall of Fame. He is beyond the pale. There are 250 members of the Hall of Fame who couldn't approach Fernando Valenzuela's level of fame. Mm-hmm. Of course, the Hall of Fame is a hall of great baseball players, the best of the best players. Statistically, Fernando didn't quite get there, partly because, he had his last elite season when he was 24. He was a good pitcher for a long time after that. Wasn't an elite pitcher after age 24. But I feel like there's got to be, I don't know, like it's called the Hall of Fame. He is one of the 20 most famous players in baseball history. I feel like he belongs there.
Yeah, like you said, the name isn't the Baseball Hall of very good numbers or very good stats or better than other people's stats of your generation. It is fame. It should be what you did for the sport. how transformative you were for the sport. And through the early 80s there, you cannot find a more transformative figure than Fernando Valenzuela. Like, he brought, I don't know if you saw it, there were some numbers, which I'm getting into numbers here real quick. And
Just don't try to add them.
I know you got to end the show pretty soon, but I think it was 8,000 more fans attended Dodgers games when he was pitching, and like 20 some odd or 18,000 more when he was pitching on the road. Like, that is Fernando mania. Like, he took over baseball for especially that short amount of time there in 1981. But that's got to mean something. What he did for the Chicano community here, what he did for Mexico, and the, essentially, I don't think there's a league in Mexico if it wasn't for Fernando. Like, that's got to mean something. And it's more than just, cleats in a corner in a room or a glove or some, picture. There should be a plaque. It's a Hall of Fame. It's not Hall of Numbers. He deserves to be in there. He deserves to be enshrined with a plaque. Dodgers on the cap, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, Clint and I agreeing on things, which means Clint is right. It's
ho-hum episode, huh?
There's the math we can do here. You know what? Yeah, it's gonna. I feel like Fernando's gonna come up in nearly every episode either of us do for the next long time. And hopefully the Dodgers, not like they need more motivation to win the World Series. They already wanted to win. I'm interested to see if we find out how much the players and staff knew about Fernando's health situation. Maybe we'll find out more information. Maybe we won't. But to the extent that they need extra motivation, winning for Fernando, that works for me. It is, one way or another, for whatever reason, win it. And it can be for Fernando in our hearts, and it can be also for us. I think we fans deserve it. We deserve a parade. It's been a long time. I'm old enough to drive now. I wasn't old enough to drive the last time the Dodgers got to have a parade. And you were like barely out of diapers then.
I was I was about 3. And
so you were like 4 years from being out of diapers.
I didn't get a chance to see this, really process that from Tommy, or the wonderful sweater from the Bulldog.
Yeah. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thank you again, Clint. I really appreciate every chance I have to talk Dodger baseball with you. Thank you to those of you who are with us live here tonight. I appreciate all of you. Good chat going on, good numbers here. So thank you all. That's going to do it for today. We will be back. Should be Vince and me together tomorrow. I believe we will be talking. It'll be our last episode before the World Series starts, and then and then we'll probably do it again Friday night after the game. And there will also be a bonus episode going up at some point in the next day or two before the World Series starts. I'll be doing a crossover with Stacey Gatsoulias of Locked On Yankees to talk about the World Series. That will be a bonus episode. Don't worry, it won't take away any of our Dodgers content. It'll just be bonus. So be sure to check all that out. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. You can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSense91. Clint is on Twitter at RealFRG. I am on Twitter at Snydog. DMs are open for all of us. You can reach out to us there. You can also email this podcast at LockedOnDodgers@gmail.com. or send a voicemail or a text message at 323-863-LOCK5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Bye.